Morning, everyone. Welcome back to the GTS webinar series. Appreciate your time again, and thanks for registering and participating. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Nadeem to come into the picture, and he'll carry the rest of the session.
Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for joining today, and thank you, Greenway Turf Solutions, for allowing me to be here and talk about methylazolone. So, without further ado, I'm going to get on to my presentation. So, methylazolone, a new weapon to fight against your PoaCure. As Paul said, has been a long time coming. It has been in the works since about 2012. Even before that, it started to be developed. So, going on to it. So what it is, methylazolone, it's a revolutionary herbicide to control winter grass, PoaCure and recreational turf. It's a brand new mode of action. There is no mode of action that's similar to this. It's actually unspecified, so there's no actual grouping with it. What you'll see on the label is Group Z. There is a couple of Group Zs already in the market, but there's a Group Z as that it's a non-specified mode of action. So methylazolone, it's slow acting and long lasting. So it's not something you're going to put on, you're going to see results straight away. It is going to take time in seeing the results work. But the trial work that it works on all types of PoaCure, not just the annua, but also different biotypes as well that we commonly find here in Australia. And it can be used on all turf species, on cool and warm season grasses. There's only a couple of ones that you can't use it on, but generally speaking, what you've got is what you can use it on. And it doesn't have to be just golf, bowling greens. It could be fairways, roughs, sports fields, turf farms, racetracks as well. And I'll show you quite a bit of work that we've done in regards to that. So as Paul said, there's been a lot of work done. Over 12 replicated trials have been conducted with methylazolone in the spring and the autumn time, the optimal timings, across New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, and Western Australia. So firstly, in one of the, going back, so you can see here, this is a couple of trials that I just got from the data that we've got. This is back from 2013. So you can see here going, the trials. So the trials were all set up with the product. So you got methylazolone at high rates, medium rates, low rate. So that corresponds to the low rate of 1 litre a hectare. The medium rate is 2 litres a hectare. The high rate is 4 litres a hectare. So these were done 4 applications every 2 weeks. The standard products that we used in both trials were done as per label as well. So we've got here the percentages of PoaCure control, the reduction in PoaCure. You do see here that, as I said, 4 applications 2 weeks apart. So you do see here the different rates and the end results. Be aware with this product, with these trials, they were done over a 10-week period. So for the trial, what had to be shown was that it worked just as well as the standard product or better than the standard product. This trial isn't showing the long-term picture, because one of the things that you may have heard or not heard about methylazolone is that it's long lasting and it will reduce PoaCure for a long period of time. Sometimes in the US, I've seen results for 2 to 3 years. We don't have that data at the moment because we haven't done that much work since we got our own trial product, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But just to go show you here in terms of the actual reduction. So this autumn trial in Victoria, you do see that even 2 weeks after the treatments, we're seeing a very slow reduction in PoaCure. It's only realistically 10 weeks after the applications that we're actually getting a reduction in PoaCure down to 77%. So we're getting a huge reduction in PoaCure there, even at the medium rates and even the low rate there. Just to give you an idea, the label rate is the medium to high, which is a 2 to 4 litres a hectare. On the other side of it, in the springtime trial, this was in New South Wales, we saw a greater control of PoaCure in the end of 91%. For the high rate, the 4 litre rate, the medium rate gave 86, the low rate even gave 58%. Nominee and PoaCure actually increased the amount of PoaCure there. So yeah, so that's the thing there. So this is not giving obviously the full picture of it. That's why I'll go in with the research permit trials. But I want to show you some of the replicated work that was done very early on. So you can see here back in 2012 and 2013. So this is a correspondence to the 2013 trial, the autumn trial. So you can see here these all these trials were conducted by sports turf consultant Michael Robinson. Did a lot of the work, and he's had a lot of experience with PoaCure control over the years. He made some excellent comments about how good this was and how safe methylazolone was. But you do see here the untreated here. So the untreated for the autumn time going up and up, as you would expect in the autumn time with the cooling down. The interesting part here is like his power check, the NFL, it is working quite well, but at the end it pretty much tails off and not get a great result. The methylazolone, even at the low rate, we're consistently reducing the amount of power, and then there's the medium and the high rates where we're getting excellent power control, and they're pretty much side by side with each other there, but we're reducing it. As you can see, it's like, this ends at 10 weeks after initial treatments. However, the comments were that after the trials were finished, Michael Robinson did say he went back and saw a few of the plots in the longer term, and he did actually see that the power controls are still working. So it was just because of the cost of the trials and obviously needing to do the work for registration, this was enough for it. This is the spring trial, so this was New South Wales. Again, the same ones used. We've got the untreated with the increasing in power percentage, and then you've got the low rate of methylazolone. You've got the endothal there, and you've got the nominee there, and then you've got the medium and the higher rate of methylazolone there. So in the springtime, again, they're both working quite well. So these are the labor rate, 2 to 4 litres a hectare, and really reducing the power population greatly. There is a little bit of a bounce back there, but very, very little in terms of ultimate control there. So that just gives you an idea of what the power of what this product can do, of how good it is, and it is slow acting. As I said, you don't tend to see results with this product until realistically between 2 and 3 applications. So you put it on, don't expect anything to happen until that 2nd, 3rd application, sometimes even into the 4th application with some of the research trials that we have seen. So these are the research permit trials. So when we took over methylazolone for Australia, we inherited a research permit which allowed certain golf courses, certain facilities to use this product in small areas. So it wasn't a huge amount they could do, but we could actually trial this product under different scenarios, different green, different locations, different weather patterns. So there's quite a lot of different things we did do. And I just want to make a note here for everyone that with the methylazolone, we didn't do any other power work afterwards to reduce the power even more. So we wanted to see the long-term results. What we always like to do when we're doing trials is going, everything can look really good on paper, and you can see some of the trials going, the university results going, yeah, this is showing excellent results. We want to get but what we do, we also want to get this product in our hands, and we want to test this product under high pressure conditions. We want to see what it can do, what it can't do, what you should do with it, and more importantly, what you shouldn't do with it. Because all in the end, and I'll talk about that later about how we're going to actually sell this product and market it, that we want the best result for you in the end to get to reduce the amount of power to pretty much near nothing. So this is an interesting slide to start with. Usually, someone put in here's the best result of the product. What I want to show you here is going that this trial this is the Lace Golf Club. This was a rate 4 litres a hectare, so the high rate, 2 applications, 2 weeks apart in June. As I said, generally speaking, it's going to be an autumn application and a spring application for this. However, the timing on this was good because of the climate here, much more milder climate, and we are getting the bent grass growth. However, the interesting thing is here we spoke about it, we had a look at it, go, okay, let's just see what happens. This is a great thing about trials. There was a lot more power in here than anyone thought. So that's one of the things you need to know, the population year power that you've got, because this can happen. A lot of people would have seen this before with our power check with endothal in the past. They put it on, and I've seen this where they're thinking they got 10, 20%, they've got about 50% and wipe out half the green. So this type of result it was quite aggressive. However, just notice here, it's like going, this was 56 days after the initial treatment. So this is not like other herbicides where you put it on and you see a result straight away. As I said, it's slow acting. So this is 56 days after initial treatment. So it's had all the treatments there. Now this is the part where it gets quite interesting here. This was October. So this is 119 days after the initial treatment. That's after renovation. So you actually see how much how much bent grass is actually there. So this is the interesting part. A lot of you probably listening here probably do see that you do have a lot of bent grass in your greens, but just there's a lot of power choking it out. For those that don't, it's amazing how much bent grass is actually below that and actually surviving. You just need to give it an environment for it to realistically grow and thrive. And this is what realistically power PoaCure is doing, the methylazole is doing, because it slowly melts that POA out and allows the bent grass to grow over. So you can see here that in that untreated area, there's a lot of POA still in those areas, and then the bent grass is really filling in. Again, this is not something we'd recommend going forward, but this is good to see. The interesting part is the actual board were happy with this because they saw a lot of dead POA. From a superintendent point of view, no way you would want this type of scenario where you've lost that much turf. So this is what we don't want to happen. However, this was in November. So you can see here going, I didn't even bother putting the lines in for this slide, just because it should show up nicely here that this is 154 days after the initial treatment. So this is in November. You see how much, and this is A4, let me remind you, sorry, it's an A4 bent grass, and it is a nice square. So essentially this was all hand applied with a knapsack, and you see the amount of POA around the area. There's quite a high percentage of POA actually increasing from when we actually first started back there in June. And this is all bent grass. So this is 100% A4 bent. Yeah, there's a few little bits here and there that you do get some areas where it needs to fill in a little bit more, and a little bit of seed might help in those areas. But generally speaking, yeah, this area is not too bad or anything like that. So it's just a little bit areas there that just need to fill in. But yeah, that's 154 days after the initial treatment. Sorry, this is 210 days after the initial treatment. So this is going on further. Here we are now in February. So we're 7 months after the initial treatments here. So you can see here, and this is just February. This is actually February just passed, February 2020. So with this plot the way it is at the moment, there was a lot more bent grass in it, coming out of summer. Quite stressful summer. There's a lot more bent grass taken over from the POA, and we saw that generally around Sydney. So anyone listening in Sydney would have probably seen this in themselves. However, in the area here, we still see a lot of, it's all still bent grass. It's 100% bent grass there. There is that slight little bit there. I'm not sure what happened there. I think it might have been mower mark or something like that. But this is still, but then you do see POA around the edges of the green there. But this is still 100% A4 bent grass. It has not had anything on it. It had Strenexapac. That's all it's had on there. No pactibutrazole, no ethafon, nothing else. No endothal. It's just essentially had methylazole on there. This is 308 days. So this was April. Similar again. You do see here, again, this A4, it's all bent grass through here. And actually, I purposely moved the line the wrong way, but you can still see the bent grass and the amount of POA in the outer areas are untreated. Again, no other POA control regime has been going on here. So it is still keeping the POA out for a long period of time. 308 days we're getting residual. This was the latest photo I had. So this was May, 326 days. I'm hoping to go out here essentially 365 days, which will be the where we would have the Australian Turf Growers Conference. That was the week it was applied, to see what that result was. But again, you can see here, it's still all A4 bent grass, nice and healthy, going strong, where it's just keeping, excuse me, where it's just keeping the POA out. It is amazing about how much is that barrier there. It's actually quite surprising in what it can do. So we're very impressed. Now, a couple of things here with this trial though, when it was applied. So as I said early on, the timings of it, generally speaking, are the autumn and the springtime. However, because the growth at the lakes here in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, we tend to get a mild type winter. Sunlight hours aren't great, but it's a mild type winter that the bent grass was consistently growing. And with his nutrition practices, we were getting good growth of the bent grass. And that's the key for the long-term results as well with this product, which I'll show in a couple of other ones as well. But what we'll go into it a bit more, but we do need that bent grass growing. We do want you to put on nitrogen throughout the period and to go on it afterwards. So if you're on 0N, we want you to put a little bit of N on. Don't need a huge amount, but a little bit. And this is where the guys from Greenway with GTS with their nutrition knowledge will be able to help you out in terms of how much to put on. But yeah, realistically, don't need a bit, but we just need that bent grass growing to get the best result out of the product. Now, the other thing we did in September, we then instituted a monthly application because of that initial result where it just wiped out a lot of the power at one hit. We wanted to say, well, what's this do with monthly applications on their greens? So we chose, that was the first green, by the way, the other one. This is a second green. So this was a 2 litre rate monthly application. So we did 6 applications here. In theory, probably didn't need that final app, but it was done anyway. So these applications were started in September. They finished in February was the last app. So this is 256 days after initial treatment. So again, you see here, the bent grass is just 100% bent grass, no power in it. It is clean as. I will let you know that we also did a trial plot next to it with the 1 litre rate, fortnightly applications. The end result was the same. The 1 litre took a little bit longer to catch up to the 2 litre, but essentially they were both end up being the same. There wouldn't have been any difference with it. So with this, you do see the 2 litre here work really well. And again, you see the power here, how much power there is, and how much and what PoaCure, the methylazoline, is doing in keeping the power out. So this has been, and again, an ideal result. So this is starting in September, where we would normally do these spring applications, and getting that. So we did 6 applications here, but as I said, probably 5 would have been okay here, and the like. So with this going forward, they're going to look at doing monthly apps, even shortening down to 2 to 3 weeks once the amount of power does reduce quite significantly. Now, here's another one. This is another one about just showing you the speed of the power control of the methylazoline. So this is another course in Sydney, the Hills area. So this is both rates, the 2 litre a hectare rate and the 4 litre a hectare rate. So you see, and this is an April start. So this is autumn. In autumn, usually we see a much more aggressive killing of the power. So you do see here within the 4 litre rate, this is after one application. So 4 applications 2 weeks apart, much more aggressive in terms of the killer power. The 2 litre is taking a bit longer. This is 35 days after it. So this is after 2 applications. Again, similar there. The 4 litre starting to come over slightly. However, this is what it looked like 136 days. So this is well after all the applications had been done. So this is unacceptable for the superintendent, which I can understand. But again, great thing about trials. So, you know, it was too fast. But it was a great result. We aren't getting any power back in the pot. We're getting dead power, just a few bare patches. However, here's a 2 litre rate. Again, this has had, so total 8 litres of product. This has had 16 litres of product. There's obviously, look at the untreated there. So you see quite a bit of power still in there. I would look at this and you'd probably need about 6 applications to really get rid of it. This was 154 days afterwards. So the 2 litre plot is nice and clean. There's probably a little bit of power here and there, but really not much. The 4 litre, we're still getting not 100% covered over. However, yeah, it's going great guns. This is long term. Now, I sort of drew this. I'll be honest with you here. I don't know exactly where the plots were that we lost the markings. However, we can see where obviously it had been untreated, the amount of power in the area, and that's the 4 litre rate here, and that's the 2 litre rate. So there is still a bit of power in this 2 litre, but the amount, and this is 370 odd days after the actual, 372 days, sorry, of actual after the product has been used. So this is over a year. So we've been keeping the power out for a good time with methylazoline here, even though it's just after those 4 apps. Oh, sorry, let me just go. So one other thing we did do in the next slide going, one of the questions that we've had in the past is like, well, why can't I just apply this in one hit? Methylazoline doesn't tend to work well in one hit. It works, but the aim and the key to this product is multiple applications, slow transition, least disruptions to the surface to get the best, to get the power eliminated and get the bent grass or your desirable species out. So this was just an idea of 8 litre a hectare rate. So this was just one of the guys in Victoria did this for me on a pretty much nearly 70% power green. There's December, started to kill the power. 6 months later, power's dead. Power hasn't come back. A lot of bent grass in there, but you would never actually do this on a surface. This is January, so this is 11 months after the initial application. Actually, 13 months after the application, which was in November. So you can see that a lot more bent grass has come back, and this was just recently here, where we've essentially converted this from 30% bent grass to 70% bent grass now. So, and that's in one hit. But obviously, this is just a great thing about trials. Again, we see the extremes. This was another one that was done in November application starting, 4 applications, and this is 175 days after application. Sorry, avoid that. Sorry, I've made a mistake there. Please disregard that. But this was a November start. Sorry, this picture was May. That's what I'm saying. Sorry, it wasn't a start in May. It was a No, please ignore that because this picture was in May this year. So that was 175 days, 4 applications, and you see the amount of power through there. However, all of this has been under paclobutrazol. They've been doing, they're on a Paclo program and been doing it on the growing degree days and showing, you know, essentially going, it's working on the power to suppress it, obviously, but it's not controlling the power. With methylazole, yeah, it's definitely controlling it there. There's still a bit of power in there, but essentially that is, yeah, close to 100% clean. This situation, what I'd look at, if you go in the future going, this is 4 applications, you get to this, a 5th isn't necessarily warranted. This is where we would recommend going in with endothal, going in with Paclo, afterwards to keep the power out. That's an option you can do. This was in Western Australia, just to show you. So this was all, this is all the treated area here. This is bentgrass. So you do see here that there is some power still here, but this is the untreated, and this is all paclobutrazol treated. Again, the paclobutrazol is suppressing the power, but it's not controlling the power. Paclobutrazol, you got to remember, it's a plant growth regulator. It's not a herbicide. Where PoaCure, the methylazole, is an actual herbicide. But just give you, this is yeah. Again, this is only 4 applications. However, realistically, we'd probably look at 5 to 6 applications to 100% eliminate it. This was a trial that was started in May last year. This was in South Australia, down south, so a lot cooler climate. So we started this, in hindsight, we started this way too late. However, this just goes to show you the results over a long period of time. You can see the amount of power. These greens are treated with recycled water, which encourages power, and they haven't been able to control it with this side of things. This was 38 days after treatment, 70 days after treatment. So you do see, even here, 7 days after the initial treatment going, all the applications have been done, but the power is still dying. There is a little bit coming back. Again, a lot of this is like going, we're in the middle of winter, and the reason it's coming back is that bentgrass is not growing. It's essentially stopped after the 2nd application. So in hindsight, we should have started back in May. Should have started back in March with this, not started in May as we did. This was 84 days and 109 days out of it. So there is still power, a lot of power there that's just in the outside bits there, but there's still the power that's dead. Some of it, yes, I will say it is coming back there. However, this probably shows you a bit nicer. This was the whole plot where it's treated, so you see a lot of dead power. Again, this is that 84 days. You do see some power still there. There's the untreated on the outside. The next picture will really show it. So this is 4 applications. We were able to reduce the power. So you look at the untreated area and the amount of power in the untreated area. It's astronomical. We're looking at a 70% power green at least here. I knew these were high, but when I went and saw it, I go, wow, I was quite amazed. And you see the treated area. So we haven't fully eliminated the power, but we've reduced it dramatically. And this goes back to show from the initial trial work that after those 10 weeks, we're getting 80–90% control of power. Obviously, with this, the conditions were so conducive to power. The water that he's using, the water quality, unfortunately, is conducive to help power as well. But we're still able to fight it off. This was 109 days after the treatment, so you essentially would call this a power green. And then you see here the treated area that we have been able to reduce the power significantly. I think this may probably need, to be honest, probably another 4 applications. But it could be that when we do this, and the way we're going to work with you, it's like it might only end up being 4 or 5 applications, and then going on to paclobutrazol, going on endothal, and going on to other pole products to really keep the power away. This was a very recent trial. So this only started in April. This is just near me up at Castle Hill Golf Club. We initially did some work in the middle of summer, and we saw, obviously too much power eradication, we'd never look to use it in summer. However, we thought, let's start in autumn here. So he did some applications starting in April. This is 1 litre fortnightly for 2 apps, 2 litre monthly, and 4 litre monthly. So again, this autumn time, you're always going to see that quicker result. This was seen a lot quicker than I thought. We're starting to see power die here, which I thought was quite surprising after that sort of 1 application, obviously 2 with the 1 litre, and there's the untreated side of things. Now, this is the interesting part. So this was only taken a couple of weeks ago. So they're the same plots, and the amount of power has increased in the green again dramatically. Power has just gone crazy here in Sydney at the moment. We've cooled down. We've had some wet weather. We've had some misty. There was fog this morning. Had about 3–4 mil last night. Great power growing conditions, but you also great for bentgrass. But you do see the amount of power in the greens, and you see the transition there. That 4 litres pretty much got rid of most. There's not a scarab really of power left in there. There is a slightly little bit of phyto, I will mention that, but it's not unacceptable. It'll recover pretty quick. The 2 litre rate works perfectly. There's a bit of power still there, but again, we need that one more app there. And then the 1 litre rate is like nicely, but it's not working as well as a 2 litre rate. All right, so another one here, we thought, okay, well, that's all golf. Well, what about sports fields? What about high cut turf? So this was the guys down at Moonee Valley. So they, this is guy down at Moonee Valley. So this is ryegrass. So essentially with them, ryegrass, 100% ryegrass, and they can't control power with anything else here. So this has got a history of resistance, and they've tried to use everything under the sun to reduce the power. So this is what we're initially starting with. We did 4 apps here, 4 litre rate. So after 2 apps, that's the result we've got, starting to see the power die out. After the 4 weeks after the final app, you do start to see a lot of the power. Keep an eye here on the untreated areas. Sorry, treated areas with other products that they aren't getting control of compared to methoxazole. We're getting great control of the power. They haven't seen this before with this good a control. This was 273 days after treatment. And just to show you, there's the initial treatment there. Now, here it's like going, this is 273 days afterwards. Power's coming back. Yes, it is. We expected this. Again, it was only the 4 apps. We didn't eliminate the power 100%. If with methoxazole you do not eliminate the power 100%, it will come back. However, when it does come back, what we've seen, it tends to be weaker. It tends to be obviously a much smaller population, and it should be able to easily control maybe with methoxazole again or other products if available. But again, you see the amount of power there. The other side of it, again, you got to remember, this area has only been treated with methoxazole 273 days ago, well, essentially since during the previous year. You also got to remember that they are not cutting with any catches, so all the seed, any of the seed is actually going into that plot. So there's a lot of power pressure here. So we are getting a good statistical decrease in power there, and there's the initial treatment there. So it is working quite well. And again, they're cutting here at 100 mil as well, so higher cut turf. This was a turf farm. Some of you guys, if you're in Victoria, might have seen me present this at the country meeting last year. Briefly, so this is a more longer term result than what I had. So this is, again, 4 applications, 4 litres a hectare, and start in May. And I call this cauliflower power. Absolutely beautiful power if you're growing, power, but we wanted to kill it, obviously. This is Agri-Dark Cooch. 44 days and then 94 days after initial treatment. So you see the power is dead. So I think this is the picture that I showed at the country meeting, if anyone's out there listening, who was there. So you see it was pretty much dead. There was some signs of life, but all the applications had been done. This is 94 days. I do have a 2 litre plot here, but it worked, but not as well as the 4 litre plot. I'll let you know that. This was September, nearly 100% clean. So a little bit of power there, popping its head up. Now, October, we started getting power back. Again, not unsurprising, because we did not eliminate the power 100%. If in theory, we should have probably gone more applications on this area. However, what you see with the power coming back compared to the untreated, it's coming back, but it's a lot less. It's a lot smaller. It's not the cauliflower. It's not puffy. So again, we should be able to easily knock that over with PoaCure again in this season. What we would have done, obviously, is gone more applications throughout the season, throughout the winter time, because this does work better in the cooler weather. Frost doesn't affect it. Actually, frost can actually sometimes help, but we saw that. That's why we saw, this result so quickly, because of the frost, and we had quite a few frosts going in. But we are getting some power back. But comparison to what the untreated is, you can see here, it's a lot better. So, and again, this area has been treated with a lot of the SU herbicides and not getting any result with it. So that's the other great thing about this, is like we are getting biotypes that other products aren't getting, but we're also being able to control resistant power as well. All right, so they're all the trials that we've done. I hope that's giving you a bit of what the product can do and just sort of the limitations of it. I want to go into here just a little bit about the way we want to bring the product to market, and the way in terms of looking at purchasing it with the guys from Greenway and working with them. So I've got different programs here, and this is what we sort of looked at. I'm not going to go too much into it, but essentially we're looking at minimum 4 applications, some up to 6. However, it all depends on the discussions between myself, yourselves, the turf managers, and the Greenway guys. We will come up with a plan to help best control the power. because we do want you to get the best result out of the product. What that looks like can be very different. The great thing about PoaCure, as I said, you can be very slow in getting in the transition, but it can also be very quickly, and we can adjust rates, intervals, and the likes like that. So accessing PoaCure methylazole. So limited supply for spring. We're not going to go, it's not going to be just an off-the-shelf product, as Paul said. One of his reps, Andrew Ball, said to me perfectly, he goes, it's like prescription medicine. And I said, Andrew, you hit the nail on its head. That's exactly how we want to do it. What we want to do, because, as I said to you, because it's not cheap, it's not a cheap product, and because of the way it can work, it is safe on a lot of different turf species and the likes, but we want you to get the best results. So as I said, that discussion has to be between us, GTS, and the turf manager. We want to look to start slowly. So at most, any sort of new people are going to look at this, 1 to 2 bottles maximum that we're looking at, with the aim of then going, as we go on further and further, we'll increase that area. I look at it going, and especially with the cost of this product, as I said, it's not cheap, but the long-term results and what you're also utilizing for pole control at the moment, it actually becomes cheaper. Because the other thing I will point out, this is not a product I would expect you to use every year in the same area. What I would expect, for instance, going, if you're at a club and going, we can't afford it, you can do 6 grand a year. You can do half an area a year. It doesn't matter. Like, for instance, for a golf club, if you do 6 grand a year, you do 6 grand over a 3-year period. Within that, you do the first year, you do the first 6 grands. The next year, you do the next 6 grands. You don't touch those first grands for another at least 2, 3, 4 years, or even more so. So we want you to go back on paclobutrazol, want you to use endothal, do everything you can to reduce the amount of power coming back. The other side of it is, and this is where the GTS guys with the expertise with their agronomy side going, they will be able to help you transition from managing power to managing bent grass. Because all those pictures I showed you going, it's managing bent, but also come height of summer, you're managing power, you're keeping power alive. So you want to manage bent grass, and the guys at GTS can definitely help you out there. So that's how we want to do it. We'll keep on constant communication throughout the period. You'll get phone calls from me, you'll get visits. Obviously if I'm in the area, they'll get visits from the GTS guys. I'll be my eyes and ears on the ground. So that's how we're going to look to do it. Now, these are the caveats. This is what you need to know. This is what I really like to stress when we bring a new product out going. You need to know your power percentage. Don't guess. The other thing is know your health of your turf. The only reason I say that is there has been some work in the States which showed if your turf has been quite, and this is more bent grass, where it's been under a high stress level coming out of the summertime, we got to really assess whether to use PoaCure at that time of year. It might be to the springtime, but it just depends. It doesn't, they've seen some reduction in root grass growth. It's not a huge amount, but we just got to make sure. That's where that turf health assessment will come in handy. The other thing is know your grass type. We've had some issues with a straight A1, not A1, A4 mixes. That's been fine, no problem. But some straight A1, we're going to look a little bit of caution here, as well as not to use on brown top, red, or chewing fescues. So again, this is a conversation we'll have all together here. We need that turf to be actively growing. We want the nitrogen to be used with the program. If you are on paclobutrazol, you've got to get off paclobutrazol 2 weeks before you start PoaCure, and then you wait a good 2 weeks after the program ceases, and you can get back onto it. Excellent. Trinaxabac ethyl, no problem. You can do that, but no ethyl, no paclobutrazol. Stay away from the height of summer and winter time. And that's the other side of it, is going, this is why we want to work with you guys to get the best results, because we know what happens in summer, we know what happens in winter. The product will still work, but the results aren't as ideal, and you can run into a little bit of issues. And the next part of it is all in regards to herbicides, where avoid waterlogged greens. Don't put it on. If you're due for an application, if it's day 14, you're due for an application and it's going to rain, hold off. Give it another week, wait till it dries out. PoaCure is flexible in terms of timing, so it can do that. Goes to show you with renovations, verti draining, solid tinings, no problems. Top dressing, no problem. Just do it a week either side of it. Pulling course, however, is you can do it, but you apply PoaCure, apply the methylazole 2 weeks later, core. 2 weeks after that, go back on the methylazole. So, because you can actually pull the product out as you're coring, and we have seen that. Seeding time, we've got to do a little bit more work for Australian to get the Australian work on the label. But in the US, they've got 45 days after the last application for any seeding. So if anyone here listening on sports fields, and obviously you oversow with ryegrass, You know, we're going to have that discussion. We'll have that plan of attack there. The last thing I want to mention is that we are going to have a dedicated website for PoaCure, poacure.com.au. I'll have a lot of resources there on our label, on technical details, trial information. As well, I'll have a form there, which essentially, if you are interested in using it and you want to put some information through the website rather than, rather than firstly initially give the GTS guys a call, we've got some information there for you guys to fill out, and then I'll get in contact with you and have a chat to you. So, guys, I really hope that's the end of the presentation. I really hope I've been able to give you a good introduction to what methylazole PoaCure is, what it can do, and not so much what it can't do, but how we need to really use it the best way. So, yeah, so again, thank you very much, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen today. Yeah, and I hope to see you once the borders are up. I'll catch up with everyone around the traps. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nadeem. Really appreciate that. That was fantastic.